Welcome to my latest 2023 NFL preview. Today I am breaking down the Minnesota Vikings, and here's how my preview videos work. I start off with 3 things I like about the Vikings, then I follow up with 3 things I don't like, then we go over to yearly win total odds, break down the schedule, and at the end I give my betting recommendation. Let's kick this off with 3 things I like about the Minnesota Vikings. The first thing I like about the Vikings is Justin Jefferson. Easily the NFL's best wide receiver last season. His 128 receptions is 7th all-time for a single season mark. His 1,809 receiving yards is 6th all-time. Just entering his 4th season, he could actually still be ascending. So far in his first 3 seasons, Justin Jefferson's averaging at 96.5 yards receiving a game. That is an NFL all-time record. No other receiver in NFL history even has 88 yards receiving a game. When I make out these lists, I don't like to single out individual players, but Justin Jefferson is simply different. The second thing I like about the Vikings is new defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Last year, the Vikings had one of the NFL's worst defenses. They were 28th in points and 31st in yards allowed. Last season, when Kevin O'Connell took over, he brought in Ed Donatel, whose defensive scheme is a lot different than what the Vikings ran in the past under Mike Zimmer. They brought in some new players, but their dramatic change really didn't work. If anything, the defense seemed to get worse as the season went on. Hiring Flores, I thought, was a great move. You bring in somebody with head coaching experience and someone O'Connell has worked with before. Well, kind of. O'Connell was drafted by the New England Patriots and was a backup to Brady when Flores was a defensive assistant there. The biggest difference between Donatel and Flores is that Flores' scheme changes and adapts, a Belichick staple where Donatel runs his system regardless of personnel. With this offense, the defense doesn't need to be great, but they can't be bottom 5 again. The third thing I like about the Vikings is Danielle Hunter. I know, again, just one player, but when your defense is bad, the first thing you need is a star, and Danielle Hunter is a star. He isn't as good as an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme as he is a pure defensive end in a 4-3 scheme. Keep in mind, 3-4 and 4-3 is kind of outdated, so I'm generalizing here. In Flores' scheme, he'll be put in his best position to succeed. Don't get me wrong, Hunter did have a good season. He did go to the Pro Bowl and had 10.5 sacks, but he's capable of playing much better in a different type of scheme. This offseason, the Vikings brought in some new defensive players that should help free up Hunter to be the game changer that he is. Again, the Vikings don't have to have a great defense, but they can't finish bottom 5 again, and they have the first key, and as an A+ pass rusher in Danielle Hunter. To recap the 3 things I like about the Vikings, I like Justin Jefferson, new defensive coordinator Brian Flores, and Danielle Hunter. Before I reveal the 3 things I don't like about the Vikings, I ask you to smash that like button. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. It helps me out quite a bit when you subscribe to the channel. Now, 3 things I don't like about the Minnesota Vikings. The first thing I don't like about the Vikings is the way the 2022 season ended. The Vikings set an NFL record with an 11-0 mark in 1-score games. Then they lose in the playoffs 24-31. The loss was brutal and coaches were fired. This loss is something that's going to be very difficult to get over. Unfortunately, Vikings fans are used to difficult playoff losses. The worst thing to happen to Kevin O'Connell might be to go 13-4 year 1. It's easy to get worse, but it's hard to improve off that season. If you don't get back into the playoffs after winning 13 games year 1, you will be on the hot seat come 2024. The second thing I don't like is key defensive players are gone. I understand the defense was bad and roster turnover is necessary, but the Vikings do lose some really good players. Eric Hendricks has been the team's leading tackler since 2015, except for 2020 when he missed 5 games. He still had 107 tackles, which in 11 games is really good. It was second on the team. Last year's 137 tackles was 14th in the NFL. You also lose Pro Bowl outside linebacker Zadarius Smith, who is second on the team with 10 sacks, and future Hall of Famer Patrick Peterson, who is tied for the team lead in 5 interceptions. Bottom line, you lose a future Hall of Famer, a Pro Bowl pass rusher, an 8-time team leading tackler. I'm not saying you didn't have to do this, but you do have to make up for all these losses. They did get players in the draft and free agency, but they must pan out. The final thing I don't like is losing key offensive weapons. You lose longtime wide receiver Adam Thielen, but you did replace him in the draft, something necessary, and and possibly an upgrade, but it's yet to be seen. However, losing Dalvin Cook is really going to hurt. He's one of a handful of running backs who can say when healthy he might be the best running back in all of football. I understood a lot of the moves the Vikings made this offseason, but losing Cook is one I really didn't get. I'm fully aware it's a salary cap issue, but losing Cook is the one move the Vikings really didn't make up for. They didn't address it either in the draft or really in free agency, and it's a massive loss. Normally at this point I recap the 3 things I didn't like, but instead I want to point out that this offseason seems more like a team in transition more than a team trying to improve. When you lose key veterans like Minnesota did this offseason, you usually don't improve. This could be a 4th point, but really it's in summary that the Vikings seem more like a team in transition rather than a team trying to compete for another NFC North crown. Now let's go over to yearly win total odds. The magic number for the Vikings is 8.5 wins. If you don't know what I'm referring to, check out my yearly win totals tutorial video listed here. Last year it was 9.5, coming off of an 8-9 season in which Zimmer was fired. To me, it's extremely interesting. A team coming off of a 13-4 season is predicted to do worse than a team coming off of an 8-9 season, especially when you have a rookie head coach. It's something I think is really interesting when you look at yearly win total odds. Now let's go over the Vikings schedule. The first 5 games of the schedule are absolutely brutal. 4 opponents that went to the playoffs in 2022 and Carolina on the road. Minnesota traditionally is a tough place to play, but a 2-3 record to start the season seems fair, maybe even 1-4. After that, you play 3 out of the next 4 games on the road, and the lone home game is a Monday nighter against the 49ers. I do think you can get 1 or 2 wins on the road out of that 4-game stretch. This first half of the season is just absolutely brutal. You have 2 out of your next 3 at home before a late season bye, which I think is a big benefit. The way I see this schedule, you could be anywhere from 5 to 7 wins when you approach the bye. For fun, let's say you beat the Raiders and lose at Cincy. The NFL does the Vikings a favor at the end of the season. They play Detroit twice in the final 3 weeks of the season, hopefully for the division, and they play Green Bay at home New Year's Eve. In my opinion, Minnesota approaching week 16 will be anywhere between 6 and 8 wins. If they sweep this 3-game stretch, they win the division. If not, they still might be able to make a wild card. I got a feeling week 18 is going to be for the NFC North crown. Now the yearly win total odds is 8.5, and I really think it comes down to the final 3 weeks of the season. Personally, I recommend passing on betting on the Vikings, but if you do have to take a bet, take the over. This is my opinion, but I really want to hear from you. What will the Vikings do in 2023? Drop a comment below and let's talk football. You can check out every NFL team preview on this playlist listed here, and tomorrow I break down the Jacksonville Jaguars. I hope to see you back tomorrow.